Favorite topic. It is a parental rights bill. And this parental rights bill, as so many of our other parental rights bills are based on upholding the family and making sure that our parents have a say in our kids, not just their education. If you recall, last year we strengthened our education parental rights bill. At times we've had to strengthen our parental rights, but I'd like to just remind you how Idaho feels about the family structure. And so just briefly, I want to touch on a couple of our statutes. Beginning in 32.10.10, it says that the implicit in the concept of ordered liberty and deeply rooted in our nation's history and traditions are that the interests and role of parents have in the care, custody, and control of their children. That the interests of the parents includes the high duty and the right to nurture and direct their children's destiny, including their upbringing. The state of Idaho has independent authority. The state of Idaho would be us, that we have independent authority to protect its parents' fundamental right to nurture and direct their children's destiny, upbringing, and education. And I won't read everything from our statutes, but just to remind you, in 32.10.11, it's the parental right for the care, custody, and control of their children. In 32.10.12, parental right to direct the education of their kids and the right and high duty to make decisions concerning their children. And 32.10.13, neither the state of Idaho nor any political subdivision thereof may violate a parent's fundamental and established rights protected by this act. So you're asking, then what are we doing? Just like we did last year when we had to codify and protect more of our parental rights in education, we're doing that right here with our medical parental bill of rights. Because our parents, you guys, you're the parents, you're the grandparents. You know and love your children the best. You understand what's best for your kids. And unfortunately, we've hit a point, not only throughout the nation, but right here in Idaho, where we start to reach down farther and farther into infringing on those rights, where parents are no longer allowed in many cases, far too many cases, at the age of 16, 15, 14, and now, with my chart, which I've also included, particularly up north, it's a new program that only allows and gives permission for the 13-year-old to speak with the care providers. And they have to get permission from their parents. Now, I think there's a couple other places that allow 14, but 13, and I put that, if you've gotten the form that you've just received, you'll see a Kootenai County Health form, and you'll see the age 13. And that's pretty disconcerting to me. So this piece of legislation allows for reasonable standards to respect the parents and their decisions, and really to bring it back to the family. And under this, though, let's be very clear, there are exemptions. There has to be exemptions. That includes for emergencies, crises of any kind. It could be mental health crisis. It could be an emergency crisis because of an accident. If there's neglect, this is incredibly important. If there's a neglect, abandonment, abuse, actually, in 16.1605, we should note that it's incumbent on any of our healthcare providers, any of our teachers, any counselor, if they're told of abuse, it could be any kind, sexual abuse, abandonment, any of that, that has to be reported to the authorities. Because if we don't, then we send that kid right back into the same situation that's abusive, and that's wrong. So these exemptions are all included in there. Certainly if there's a blanket consent, and certainly if there's an emancipated minor. So that's what this piece of legislation is doing. It's bringing our parental rights back to the parents, back to the family, where the family's best suited to deal with this. I think generally, unless there are questions, that pretty much sums it up. As you can see, it's not a long bill, but it's the right bill. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, should there be questions, I'm happy to answer some. Otherwise, I'll just sit down and request your green light.
Thank you, lady. You've heard the motions. Further debate on the motion. Good lady for 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just would like to ask the good lady a question to clarify.
The lady from 33 would yield to a question.
Absolutely.
Lady yield.
Thank you, good lady. So in a situation where, like you said, in the exemption part of this bill, if there's a child under 18 living in a home for children without parents, and maybe their parents are in prison, and these children have been making their own medical decisions, would this also allow them to continue going to the doctor and getting the medications that they're currently on?
Lady 33.
Mr. Speaker, good lady. I'm actually glad you asked that question because there are situations out there that's hard to account for everything. And so in reading the clear language, if a parent is unavailable, if there's abandonment, yes, this absolutely should cover that.
Thank you, good lady. No, that's good.
Thank you, lady from 6. Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Oh, there they go. Good lady from 19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was wondering if the good lady would stand for a question.
Would the lady from 33 care to yield to another question?
Absolutely.
Lady yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and good lady. I'm kind of, reading this fast, and I'm not finding the language around the exception for emergencies. So if you could help me understand whether, an active infection would be an emergency.
Good lady from 33.
Mr. Speaker, good lady. An active infection like a cut?
Let's stop there for a second. Would you like to clarify your questions to the good lady from 33, please?
Yeah, gonorrhea, chlamydia, not a cut, but an infection, something that maybe, you don't run into the ER for, but.
Good lady from 33.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, good lady. No, the language under this, that would not qualify as an emergency, and that would be something that would be incredibly important to have the parents involved with so that they would be able to continue further care at home and make sure that any siblings who were in the house were also not exposed unnecessarily should things need to be washed or kids need to be protected.
Lady from 19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
Good lady may have the floor to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have deep concerns about this bill. We have, in various parts of our statute, exceptions for teens to be able to make their own medical decisions because we know sometimes those are sensitive and private, and having to disclose that to a parent might not be safe in that family, and it also might just mean care doesn't get delivered. Potentially life-saving care. You take the example of syphilis. There are serious consequences to letting that go untreated. I think we would all hope that if we have a teen in our lives, that they would feel comfortable going to their parents for, about concerns for a sexually transmitted infection or any sort of mental health struggles they face, and anything like that. But we can also understand that there might be barriers. And I will tell you that I would hope my children would tell me if they had a sexually transmitted infection. But if they weren't comfortable, what I hope is that they get the care. What's important is that they get the care. And this creates a barrier, puts doctors in a horrible position, and really threatens the health and safety of our teens who might need mental health services or other services that have just some sensitivity and privacy around them. I'm worried about the drafting of this. This is not a thoroughly drafted bill. I don't think it doesn't cover the other parts of statute that are in conflict with it. So we're going to have conflicting laws and statute if we move this forward. The good sponsor mentioned the terrible potential for sexual abuse, and made the comment that, if there's sexual abuse, then of course the provider needs to report that to the police and get that resolved. Here's the problem. The provider's not going to know about the sexual abuse because the teen can't go see the provider without the parent's permission. this is unnecessary. I think it's going to hurt our young people, and we need to go back to the drawing board on this one. I ask for your red light.
Thank you, lady. Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the bill.
The biggest problem with this bill is that we do have some parents who do not believe in medical treatment for their children. There are parents who, and they've been down, this legislature has seen this issue several times and has not taken any action. But the problem is that there are some who, through religious belief, alleged religious belief, believe that faith healing is the remedy for their children's problems. It's been pretty well documented that this is an issue, especially near the Snake River where there's a cemetery. This bill does say in an emergency, but that's life-threatening or extraordinarily serious. But what do you do in the case when there is not an emergency? It's a serious condition. Maybe it's the onset of appendicitis, but it may be something that might be able to be remedied without surgery, without intervention. Those kinds of basic problems that human beings have. This bill gives additional protection to those parents who do not believe in medical care for their children. And I think that is a huge conflict with our most of our own beliefs, with society's beliefs, and it is something that needs to be addressed in this bill. It is not addressed in this bill, and therefore I urge you to vote no.
Thank you, gentlemen. As for debate on the motion, gentleman 25.
Mr. Speaker, if the lady from 33 would rise for a question.
Would the good lady from 33 yield to another question?
Absolutely.
Lady yields.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, good lady. Definition of parent is pretty obvious in there, and we're talking about parents' rights. What if a child has a situation, has a health situation, and the parents disagree? The mother and the father disagree about treatment. Can either one of the parents take the child to a doctor? And what about the rights of the other one?
Lady 33.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman. Under the court rulings, we know if you're talking about a divorce case, certainly the parent has primary custody, is generally the person, who generally gets to make those decisions. As far as disagreement, I don't see how that would be any change from what we currently have in our medical situation today. What we're trying to do is fix a different problem where parents are being left out of the conversation. So if I didn't quite answer your question, maybe I didn't understand it, good gentleman.
Gentleman 25.
Yeah, I'll add some clarity to the question, if I may.
The good lady yield to an additional question, and the good gentleman will try to be a little more clear.
Yes, absolutely.
Lady yields.
Yeah, and the definition of parent, it kind of goes from parents down to an individual. So I would assume that if, in a normal, non-disputed family situation, husband and wife are getting along, but they have a disagreement about the care of their child, can one of the two parents veto the action of the other, from taken to the doctor or not?
Lady 33.
Mr. Speaker, good gentleman. Basically, as I think I started to allude to, it really is whatever the decree, what the courts have said. But what the scenario that you're presenting is at least a scenario where the parents are involved and they're in that discussion. And I don't think that an initial disagreement means it's a disagreement from here on out. It's something that the parents need to work out in conjunction with their child and their healthcare provider. I don't see a conflict with that and what this piece of legislation is trying to do.
Gentleman 25.
I wasn't as clear as I should have been. I'd like to add more clarity to the question.
The good lady yield to additional question. Lady yields.
The lady, absolutely.
Okay,
Good gentleman.
thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good lady. I'm sorry for doing, but we're in a medical situation. One of the parents, biological parents, wants to do a procedure and the other does not. And the medical team is trying to make a decision about what to do. And one parent says no, the other one says yes. This says the biological parent. So one parent has given permission to the doctors to proceed. So that's where I'm getting confused about where this draws the line.
Good lady, 33.
Mr. Speaker, good gentleman, again, that situation's happening right now. That is not, it's really not what we're addressing. So nothing changes with that. They have to continue to work. Nothing changes with that. They still have to work that out.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate.
Gentleman has the floor. Debate the motion.
Thank you. I would just add that based on the debate we've heard and the questions that have been asked, a vote against this bill is not a vote against parental rights. It's a vote for a better, more clear version of this bill. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good lady, 24.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good lady from 33 yield to a question?
Good lady, yield.
Absolutely.
Lady,
Thank you.
yield.
So I talked to you previously and said I was going to reach out to some physicians at home, which I did. And I will note that they are all parents. But one of the questions that was raised was if someone comes into their office for an adolescent, and they are having a mental health crisis, they're suicidal, it can be somewhat difficult to determine if it's an emergency for that child or if they can be helped with talk therapy. And so their question was, would they be able to send that child to talk therapy that day to get them the help they need under this bill?
Lady, 33.
Mr. Speaker, before I answer, would the good lady clarify? I couldn't understand if you're saying talk therapy, and I didn't know what that was, or talk therapy.
Good
Talk.
Good lady from 24.
Sorry.
Clarify.
Thank you.
I was
Speaking.
worried it was,
Okay. Thank you, good lady.
Mr. Speaker, good lady. Yes, absolutely, they could be helped. Let's just go to page 2. Anyone who wants to follow along, section 4B. The healthcare provider reasonably determines that a medical emergency exists. And so this is already in Idaho code. So a medical emergency exists, and that if that medical emergency exists, then absolutely they need to help. The difference is get that emergency help going and let the parents know.
Lady, 24.
For a follow-up?
With the good yield. Lady from 33 yield to additional question.
Absolutely.
Lady yield.
Yeah. So I guess their concern, part of their concern, it's not about talking to the parents per se, but if they're in that, they're trying to decide, can they go to talk therapy or is it truly an emergency? Because if it's truly an emergency, they have to probably send them to the emergency department, which is not usually the best place for someone to get this help. But if they say, we need to send you to talk therapy, and maybe it's something that child is nervous to talk to their parents about. So I don't know if you understand what I'm getting at, the difference between those two, and would they be able, if they say the best place for this youth to go is to talk therapy, not to the emergency department, can they do that day?
Lady 33.
Mr. Speaker, good lady, and to the body, we're talking about parental rights. If it's an emergency, you have to treat it. That I feel confident that that's in there, but you can't keep it a secret from the parent, because if it is an emergency, that emergency doesn't go away just because they conversed with someone. At that point, they're going to go home with that, and if you hide that from the parents, that doesn't dissipate, and they're going to need follow-up. So I'm just saying this is going to allow you and allow them to treat it, but you got to tell the parents. That's my key point.
Lady 24.
Thank you. I just have one comment, and it's not really to debate the bill, but
Well, let's say it's debating the bill. and
Okay.
then make your comment.
so.
Good lady has the floor to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe in parental rights, and the physicians I talk to at home also believe in parental rights. I do just have one comment I want to make about My Help, or My Chart. It is an app that is used by hospitals. It is not specific to children. It is not intended to hide children's medical records. I have My Chart on my phone, and that is how we access our medical records. So I just want to be clear, because I feel like maybe it was presented in a way that My Chart is somehow intended to hide information. It's actually how patients access their electronic medical records. And as I looked, and I'm not in the Kootenai Health system, but when I looked into some of them around the state, it's very clear that parents can get access to their children's medical records. So I just wanted to clear that up, and it's, like I said, not really a debate about the bill. But.
Thank you, lady. You've heard the motion for debate on the motion. Good lady 32.
I just have a question for the good lady from 33.
The good lady 33 yield to a question.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me, Mr. Speaker, can you tell me how does it work if you have a situation where you have parents that maybe themselves have prejudices against medical and mental health providers, when you have a child that has gone repeatedly to their parent and said, I'm struggling mentally, I need some help, I'm feeling suicidal? How does that child access care? Because the minute you might have a parent or parents that say, oh, if you just get some sunshine, or if you just go outside and exercise, it will all get better. How does that child get the help that they need? And I'm just wondering what they do in this situation.
Good lady from 33.
Mr. Speaker, good lady. Absolutely. Again, one of the key factors are the exemptions in this legislation. And the exemptions are key because there's a good gentleman that deals with a lot of this. And if a child comes to them and they're telling them they're suicidal, that's a crisis. That's an emergency. If they tried to go to their parents and the parents didn't understand it the way the child was explaining, because I don't think any parent rather wants their child to commit suicide. If they then went to someone else, it could be a school counselor, could be another health provider, anyone, and they said they were suicidal, that now creates a crisis. So now they are in a position to respond to that crisis. But then they need, after responding, they're going to need to talk with the parents. And maybe when somebody else is there with the parents and explaining the situation, the parents are going to be a little more, we didn't quite get that. Because they, for whatever reason, didn't understand what their child was saying.
Lady 32.
To debate the bill.
Good lady has the floor to debate the bill.
I guess my concern with this, and I think in this body, we've all had a parent, or we've all had parents. Most of us are parents and have had children, and we would want nothing but the best for our children. But I have seen examples within my circle of friends and family and things, situations where you have parents that even though a child will repeatedly go to them and say, I'm depressed, I'm struggling, maybe not that they're suicidal necessarily, but that they're depressed. And you will have parents that say, oh, you don't need to have medication, or, you can just talk to me, when they truly need help. And so as a body, we do want to enable parents to have parental rights, but we also have a responsibility to speak up for those children that maybe don't have the support system at home that they need, because they don't have the set of parents that maybe all the rest of us grew up with. So I'm just a little bit concerned with that.
Thank you, ladies. For debate on motion, Gentleman 10.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate in favor of the bill.
Gentleman has the floor, debate in favor of the bill.
This bill went through Judiciary and Rules Committee, and we had one weeping mother who spoke to us individually and also testified how she lost her son to a sex change procedure without her knowledge, and she couldn't get the information ever from the medical provider that did this in Idaho. And one concern, I presume that the parents know best and want best for their children rather than institutions. So I'm supporting this bill and ask others to do so.
Thank you, gentlemen. Further debate on the motion. Gentleman from 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too support parent rights. I have a question for the lady from 33.
Good lady, you want to yield the question?
Absolutely.
Lady yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lady, are school counselors included in this bill?
Lady from 33.
Mr. Speaker, good gentlemen, are they included as part of the health care that to whom the kids could go to, and if there's emergency would report? Is that what you mean?
Good lady, would the good gentleman from 1 clarify his question?
Sure. Mr. Speaker, lady, I'm curious to know if school counselors are included as a health care. It looks to me like counselors are included, but I don't think I see school counselors. Are school counselors considered health care providers?
Lady, 33.
Mr. Speaker, good gentlemen, school counselors would absolutely fall under the category where if a child came to them to report abandonment, sexual abuse, any kind of abuse like that, a school counselor absolutely is somebody that could be reported to. They also then would be under section 16-1605, in which they would have 24 hours to report that to the authorities, so that the child could get the actual help without just knowing and sending them back to a bad situation.
Gentleman from 1.
Okay. I checked in at home with our judiciary, and we have adjudicated cases of abuse. My concern...
Gentlemen, are you asking a question or are we debating the bill? Because I'm worried you may have known the answer to your question that you just asked first. And second, I don't know what you're trying. Would you like to ask another question or would you like to debate the bill?
I have a question.
Okay, will the good lady yield another question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good
Okay,
gentleman.
Mr. Speaker, lady, in the case of abuse, of a parental abuse, and as horrible as that is and would be, what would a 14-year-old child do in that predicament? And can you lay out how that would go? You said 24 hours. I'm curious, that's a long period of time for a kid, especially an abused kid. I'd just like to know the answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you, gentleman. Good lady, 33.
Mr. Speaker, good gentlemen, the situation we have now already is in play with 16-1605. And so under that, it's the idea that, take a 14-year-old, maybe the 14-year-old is experiencing rape at home. They say incest, that's rape. And whenever that child feels comfortable enough to tell someone, because it's probably been going on and they haven't told anyone, now they feel comfortable with their school counselor and they tell them, I'm being abused. That counselor is supposed, they don't have to wait 24 hours, but we, the state of Idaho, have told them they have to report that within 24 hours. That's not new for me. And so all of this, as far as parental rights, this is where parental rights stop. And we make that exception in here because that's wrong. And we're also following current statute, which is not only does that get reported, not only do we not, the authorities will eventually inform them appropriately, but now the courts, if there are any records that the parents seem to want access to, that can be stopped because it's gone through the proper channels, which would be the police, and that child absolutely now can be taken care of. All of this allows for that.
Gentleman from 1.
Just to debate the bill briefly.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the bill.
What I checked in, as I said, checked in at home, our court system had some real concerns about this, that they felt that that minors in the type of situation that I discussed really have few places to go, and that this could have a chilling effect on their reporting and the treatment of these cases. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 27.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to debate in favor of this bill.
Chairman has the floor to debate the bill.
You know, I think what we're looking at here is the pendulum has swung too far, and a lot of really good parents have lost the ability to be involved in their children's lives during teenage years when they make the most critical decisions. So what I believe that this bill does, and as the testimony we had in committee, is it puts parents back in the driver's seat in most cases. There are exceptions. And in Idaho, I think we have some of the best parents in the world. I think that Kelly actually brought this bill forward, and people, man, this thing's falling apart. Anyway, so I vote in favor of it. I vote give that responsibility back to good parents and grandparents and let them learn how to deal with a troubled teenager so that they'll do a better job with their next kids if that's the need. But I'm in favor.
Thank you, gentlemen. For the debate on the motion, good lady from 18.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To briefly debate.
Good lady has the floor to debate the bill.
I certainly, to reiterate what all have said, I certainly hope that everybody would have this kind of relationship with their parents. And if they had that kind of relationship with their parents, this bill would not be would not be called for. It wouldn't. I don't think it's necessary anyway, but it wouldn't come into play. Really, this is about when kids don't have the kind of relationship with their parents that they would confide in them or feel comfortable or feel safe talking to them. All that this bill is going to do is make sure that those kids never seek care from anybody. Because if they haven't gone to their parents, it's because they don't feel safe or comfortable doing so, and they're not going to seek any help if they know that that help is going to result in them essentially being ratted out in a situation where they don't feel comfortable having that conversation. So I think this is just going to end up denying necessary care to kids who need it.
Thank you, ladies. For the debate on the motion, good lady from 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate.
Good lady has the floor to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hesitated standing up because I'm dealing with an issue like this right now with a constituent. And it's a super sad situation, but I'll give you some general idea of what's happening in this state. And this hasn't been the first time I've dealt with this. But I have a constituent whose autistic child, age 16, going through issues that 16-year-olds go through, been removed from the home. This happened the 22nd of January. And police reports, if you read in this bill, it talks about under 5A, 6B, it says the parent is subject to an investigation related to a crime committed against a child, and law enforcement officer requests the information not be released to the parent. The law enforcement has gotten involved. These are good members of a community. They run 2 businesses, and the police officers have said there's nothing wrong here. We've closed the cases. There's nothing going on. The state has possession of this autistic child, is now making medical decisions to send this child out of state for medical, to get some medical attention. This is unacceptable. Unacceptable, and it is happening in our state, and this is not the first call that I've had about this. And if you want to talk to me personally after, I'll share more details that will disturb you beyond being disturbed. We have to keep parents involved in these situations. We cannot have our state intervening on medical issues and not letting the parents know. Whether the state believes so or not, these children belong to the parents. Parents have parental rights unless the state deems that they do not have parental rights. And that means they are in charge of their child, the treatment for their child. Whether we agree 100% or not with how they're treating the child, that's when we have other agencies that can get involved in a situation. If there's other things that we can get the health and welfare, CPS involved, if there's some problem going on or some child is not getting treatment. But to cut parents out of the thing and to not assure them that they will have access to medical records, I think that's criminal. And so I'm asking you to really consider, and unless you haven't heard, I mean, maybe you just haven't heard these stories, but I have. I made the mistake of
of putting something on Facebook years ago about an injustice I've seen, and I think I get these calls at least once a week. And so I encourage you to vote for this bill to ensure that parents do have rights to this medical decision. And there's enough checks and balances in the system for a lot of these concerns that people are bringing up. There's a lot of checks and balances in the behemoth of an agency we have with health and welfare in our hospitals that I'm encouraging your green light on this.
Thank you, ladies. Further debate on the motion. Jump 31.
For a question.
The good lady from 33 yield to an additional question.
Absolutely.
Lady yields.
Thank you, good lady. I appreciate the work you've done on this and what's been said. And I think we're all for parental rights. I have a concern that on the bill on how it interacts with the HIPAA laws and those rights to privacy that are mandated by the federal government. Not that I like those mandates, but that we do have significant HIPAA laws that prevent us from knowing certain medical information. And at age 14, unfortunately, on those HIPAA laws, that's when this comes into play. Can you explain to me how this bill interacts with HIPAA?
Lady 33.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentlemen. Couple of thoughts on that. We have been meeting with our AG's office extensively. That has not been a problem. Not that anybody cares. My brother is a HIPAA attorney, well versed in this, and the state of Idaho is going to take precedent on this, because what we're saying is I'm not allowing you to see someone else's records. We're talking about the parents. The parents are going to pay for it. The parents are going to deal with it. So the AG's office has offered no concerns over that, nor have any of the other attorneys with whom we've worked, nor has my brother. Not that any of you care. So I feel completely confident that we're good with that.
Thank you, Gentleman 31.
Just to debate the bill briefly.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the bill.
I appreciate that input, but HIPAA does prohibit sometimes, and this is one thing I don't like about HIPAA, but it does prohibit parents from seeing those records from time to time. And so, not that, and I'm probably a green light on this, but I am concerned that this may bring lawsuits that we're not aware of and cost the state a lot of money.
Thank you, gentlemen. First debate on the motion. Gentleman 26.
Mr. Speaker, to debate, please.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the bill.
I'll do this in debate. I know the good lady in the back row over there is really shy, and she will close and she can address any of these things she wants to. The only part in our debate that hasn't come out today is when the parents simply aren't there. And it's like the HIPAA laws and the secrecy laws that, people's private business isn't put out on the airways. But there are a lot of situations that come through schools that the parents just simply aren't even there. The kids are living with a grandparent of somebody that was three relationships back, and sadly, everybody loves those kids, but their substance abuse has gotten in the way so much, they are pretty dysfunctional as parents. Sometimes they get cleaned up and come back, sometimes they don't. But the issue here is that emergency clause. And unless there's an emergency, if you will, then it says that whoever the kids are with at the time as an authority has to report to the parents. What are they supposed to do when they can't find the parents? Three relationships back would be their biological parents who went off heaven only knows where, and the people taking care of them now almost really have no legal tie. The system relationships have changed so fast, the system hasn't even caught up to who really their legal guardian is. Some of these show up in the guardian ad litem program, all kinds of different places. I like the idea of the gentleman from 27. It's time to pull the pendulum back a little bit. Parents deserve to be there. My concern with this legislation, if we put it in place, and everybody who's in charge of those kids at the time because of neglect, how in the world do they find those parents? And if you've ever looked at the legal system, guardian ad litem, all those different things, you can't find that in 12 hours, 24 hours, a couple of weeks to get in front of the courts to get this stuff done. So it's a great bill. I love it. But with those things in mind, I'm going to vote no and hope that it can get fixed a little bit before it hits prime time.
Gentleman 3. 2. Poor gentleman from 3 got scared.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
He had that
A
nervous
moment
look on
of
his
levity for a serious moment.
Would the gentleman like to debate the bill?
I would love to debate
Gentleman
in
has the
favor
floor
of
to
this
debate.
bill. Every once in a while, I don't mean to impugn anybody in the room, but every once in a while when I sit here and listen, I get a little terrified. This body does not grant parental rights. Parental rights are from God. And last I checked, we are not above him. What we are dealing with here is recognizing existing rights in areas where sometimes the state has meddled in those rights. I believe what the gentleman at 27 said, it's time to reel this back in and recognize what parents already have. And I know that there's always going to be the what if and the ghost in the corner, but I am not ready to take away the rights of all the parents in Idaho because of one bad individual. That individual will get found, that individual will get punished. We have laws. We are a state of laws in a country of laws. But I just want to remind us, we can turn on the news and look at national news. There are countries and other places that don't recognize these rights. And I don't want to live in one of those. Let's not become one of those. Good bill, green light. Thank you.
For the debate on the motion. Hearing none. Gentleman 13.
Mr. Speaker, to ask a question of the good lady.
Would the good lady care to yield to a question from the gentleman from 13?
Absolutely.
Gentleman, she says
Of course.
she'll yield to you.
Yeah, we've been through this. But I just want to be sure that we're talking about the same thing, because in committee, I debated against it, and I was great, as usual, but...
It's like you lost, good gentleman. It's on the floor.
It's on video. You can see it. But that being said, she's made the strong argument, though, of parental rights. But rights are different than responsibility. You can have the right and still not do anything about it.
Mr. Speaker,
Gentleman 13.
point of order. He has to obtain the floor to ask a question, not debate, point one. And point two, if he's heard this in committee, is he going to ask a question he already knows the answer to?
Well, good gentleman 13, I am sure that the other gentleman from 13 is not going to ask a question he has the answer to, because we've had that talk about every day on this floor. And I'm sure the gentleman's not going to play gotcha, because we've had that debate on this floor about every day. So, good gentleman, proceed with your question. You know the rules and the guidelines.
I want to make sure
I will warn people, if we
get
continue to play
sideways of
gotcha
that.
with questions, then the speaker will call you out of order and not let it happen. So, good gentleman, proceed with your question.
Because, like I said, I voted against it in committee, but I was not sure I would do that here. I just want to be, I don't want to ask in such a way that it's something that I think you've already answered, because technically we're talking about the rights, and this would give them the rights, and there's all the other things taken away, but the responsibility now, and we've heard the chilling effect and everything else, but just want to be sure that we're saying we're now taking away I would say we're taking away the plausible deniability of a parent saying I didn't know, because they're the most responsible. The parents are, would you agree, the parents are the most responsible for the well-being of their own child?
Good lady from 33.
Mr. Speaker, good gentleman, given that we kind of,
Hey, good gentleman, you need to stand while she's answering questions. Thank you.
given that I think there's a lot there, let me answer it this way, Mr. Speaker. there are definitely rights. With rights comes responsibility. This is why we don't allow children to have rights, honestly. And there's something we must distinguish. We don't give them rights typically because they're not capable of backing the rights up with responsibility. Now, we certainly know many of us as adults can fail at that, but that's the distinguishing difference that thank you for bringing up, though, between adults and children, and why it's important that the parents have the ability to oversee not just the rights, but in theory, because the parents are the ones who will also be accountable for the responsibility. And it's one of the things I've stood on this floor and spoken about even before you were here, good gentlemen, which is that those who would speak of the rights of the child, such as the UN, okay, when you advocate for the rights of the child, that means parents don't have the rights. So who has the rights? And what direction are we going, good body? When the parents don't have the rights and the children have the rights, that means the state has the rights over the children. And the state does not have the best interest of the child at heart. They can't be with them. They can't love them. And you may make an exception for one or two kids. This language is for all of us. And I hate to see good parents punished for the actions of a few. So in your final question there, good gentleman, yes.
For the debate on the motion, good gentleman from 13.
Yeah, I guess just to debate.
Good gentleman has the floor to debate the bill.
We know, and everybody's pointed out, some of the flaws that are there, potentially, chilling effect, contrary to some of the legislation that's already on the books. But on the other hand, a lot of us have been parents, and permission to refer to other pending legislation.
The gentleman has asked unanimous consent, I believe, to refer to other pending legislation. Is there objection? Hearing none, the gentleman may refer to other pending legislation.
And nothing in general, but something that we definitely have dealt with. And like I said, I can probably talk myself into anything, but even though it's got the flaws, I'm not a fan of letting the least capable run the show. So, sometimes when it comes to healthcare and other issues, maybe they're minors, but I would hope that the parents, in many, many cases, have the life experience, the knowledge to actually make an informed and educated decision for the benefit of their child. Because there's nothing more important. I can tell you, your wife and I married 29 years this month, and if I gave her the ultimatum, pick me or the kids, I better be looking for a place to live. And I think most of us feel like that. The kids come first. I really hope this does what it's supposed to do. So, with that, love your kids.
Hey, gentlemen, for the debate on the motion. Hearing none, will the lady from 33 care to close the debate, please?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I could, friends, I'd just like to answer a couple of things because I don't want to leave the body with any confusion. The very first thing that I think we need to make sure we understand is that we know that parents love their children. And I'm even saying for some of you who thought you might be voting no, I'm asking you not to. I'm asking you to think about what's at stake right here. Children are born into families. Families are actually, we think of we the people, it's actually the family that forms the base unit of society. The family's the government. As legislators, as the state of Idaho, it literally is our responsibility. It's literally in statute that it is our responsibility to do everything we can to preserve and uphold and protect the family. The family. And that means parents and parental rights and their ability to raise that family. Having said that, I feel badly because some of the language here has demonized our parents, criminalized our parents. And we're talking about parents in the state of Idaho. And all parents in the state of Idaho losing rights to their children, which is happening. Okay? So that's the concern with this piece of legislation. You know, I was trying to do a little bit of work from the good gentleman for 25 and continue to try to understand what he was saying. And if I have this correctly, Idaho just needs consent from one parent. And that the Idaho law gives each parent that full ability to make decision authority. So if there's a conflict, this doesn't change the current conflict. They have to continue to work that out. This does not interfere with any of that. That's not what this legislation is about. And, you know, I feel like the good gentleman from one, that I don't think that's applicable. That is already in there. And the last thing we want to do is send a chilling effect. If there's any chilling effect, it's against the parents. The chilling effect is against our parents and what they can and can't do. That's not what we want. Good gentleman from 26. If you can't find the parent, it's right here in the bill. If you cannot find the parent on line 15, 16, 17, after a reasonable, diligent effort, the healthcare provider cannot locate or contact a parent of the minor child, and the minor child's life or health would be seriously, the life or health would be seriously endangered by further delay, then you have to furnish the service. It's in there. It's there. And, you know, the good gentleman for 17, I know this is an issue that is near and dear to your heart. You raise it all the time. It's not this issue. And believe it or not, I'm willing to engage. It's not this issue, but I am willing to engage with you on that conversation. But it's not this issue. But still, under this law, with what he's talking about, kind of a sect, under this law, in theory, if they can get him there, they can be treated. If it's an emergency, they can be treated. So I would expect possibly you to consider voting for this. But other than that, friends, let's not send a chilling effect that Idaho does not support our parents and that Idaho no longer supports the family unit. I am asking you to give the green light, support our parents, all of our parents. Oh, and I am so sorry. The good lady from 25, if you guys will look at the Kootenai County Health, and then I do need to address this. We had spoken, well, it was a friend which had got this conversation going with Dr. Amanda Jackson, the Chief Medical Officer for Kootenai County Health. She was brought in from Dallas, and one of her main things was to be brought in for the MyChart. The MyChart is a portal, and it states right on here, so you can read that, and her own words.
Speaker, I object. This is new information.
Well, good lady, she's talking about the MyChart that was brought up earlier in debate, so I think she's okay, but just be careful.
But Mr. Speaker, I am answering the question because we have conflicting information, and I want to make sure that you pass that out, that she sees, and bringing up then in response, I just had it in case it came up, that Dr. Amanda Jackson made it very clear that MyChart, just like we have on here, is for the privacy of 13-year-olds and above to be able to have those conversations without the parents' knowledge. 100%, no questions asked. That is why I kept it on here. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone else feels that way that's using MyChart, but we're just giving you an example as she was brought in to help MyChart be more accessible and usable in Idaho. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that because that was over an hour-long conversation that we had with her. Having said that, please, let's support our parents. Let's support parental rights and support our families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Debate's closed. Question is, Senate Bill 1329 pass the House? Clerk will unlock the machine. Members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. 59 ayes, 11 nays. Majority haven't voted in favor of Senate Bill 1329. Senate Bill 1329 is passed the House as a correction to title.
No correction to title.
Hearing none, the title is approved. Bill will be transferred to the Senate. The House will have to before it now. Senate Bill 1383. Good gentleman, 21.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of Senate Bill 1383.
Unanimous consent has been requested. Is there objection? Hearing that, the gentleman has the floor to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 1383 is the secondary appropriation bill for the Department of Parks and Recreation. The Department of Parks and Recreation is funded primarily through dedicated funds, as you can see on this sheet. Those dedicated funds come from user fees. We all know that there's been a really big influx in people visiting our parks and using state parks resources. That's led to also an increase in revenue to our parks funds through things like the Parks Pass, day use fees, overnight stays at cabins, things like that. Of course, along with that increased use comes increased needs. And so most of this budget represents increases in one-time infrastructure